So this is what we did. For those of you who missed class on Thursday. Yeah. Well, it's something. That's what it is. This is the realization of our two-dimensional graphic compositions into a three-dimensional form. Okay? So our objective with this, though, is to really study how this blends into a landscape, you know, as it well, for whatever reason, how this blends into a landscape. Okay, so we're going to kind of study that condition a little bit here. But really, you know, I'm going to, you guys are at the unfortunate disadvantage to just have to sit here and listen to me as I push us in that direction. But for those of you that missed anyway. But basically what we're going to have to do is take this information, we're going to have to bake it, we're going to have to put it on layers or something like that, and then we're going to have to start integrating this geometry with the landscape itself. Okay, so let's start off with that first step, right, the baking process. Basically, this whole definition is what we generated, and it looks really crazy, but it's really not. You'll see when you go through the videos, for those of you who are not present on Thursday, but you just need to take each of these geometrical components like this, and you need to bake it out into a particular layer. One thing that I want to point out to you is that there are certain bits of geometry that reach the end of our definition volume, and that's going to be this right here, right? Like this is a 100%, and that's where you see that, right? A 100% extent. And that would be the edge that we want to actually be an opaque material, okay? And you'll kind of get what I mean by that later on when we're done, but you're going to need to have a layer set up for those. Additionally, you're going to have other layers set up for something like this, which will not engage the ground directly, but is obviously, you know, something that kind of lives above that ground plane. Okay, so so we'll need a separate layer. We're going to need our opaque ones that blend, and then we're going to need whatever else it becomes, whether it's opaque or transparent. So I'm going to set those up right now. Let's keep layer 3. I'm going to rename that to OPQ-LS for opaque landscape. You can call it whatever you want. And then this one I'm just going to call everything else for now. So that baking process I mentioned, I'm just going to run down this whole line, and everything that's creating geometry here, I'm just going to check whether or not it engages the ground and assign it to that particular item. So this one right here is a 100% bleed item. It does engage the farthest extent of my model, so I'm going to right click and bake that, and I'm going to put it on opaque landscape. And it did not bake. Or is that layer off? No, it's on. It's blue. Bake, opaque landscape, hit OK. Why is it not baking? Hang on. Okay, sorry. It's because it's a cluster, so we need to actually, the one thing I didn't quite do, what we need to bake is the B-rep, not the node itself, and I'm not sure if you can do it. Yeah, it looks like you can do it directly on this. So you take that B-rep and you bake that, and then you go to OPQ-LS and you'll send it out, and it becomes an item right here. And that's pretty much the whole process, right? You go to the next one, and you select it, you check whether or not it's a 100% bleed, right-click on the B-rep output, OPQ-LS, it's going to go there. And you just keep going down. This one needs it, wrong spot. On the B-rep, bake, OPQ-LS. And this one is not a 100% bleed. So this one is going to go on the other layer. So I'll put it on everything else. So we're going to have blues and we're going to have greens. So I'm going to pause the video here for a moment while I do the rest of these. And for those of you who do have this done already, keep in tow with me. All right, I'm going to continue on a little bit. So we got to the point where we baked them all, and I noticed that some geometry actually does engage because my surface was a different direction. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Although once you guys get a little bit more into like Grasshopper knowledge, you'll have to start flipping surfaces and stuff to get it to work right. But don't worry about it for this exercise. All right, so what we're going to do now is basically take this geometry and start blending it with the actual surface itself. So the key here that you need to be aware of is that this geometry that we just generated is live, but the other geometry that we generated is also attached to some live geometry that we just have hidden. So, and by that I mean, if you turn on the two layers that are off, right, this purple layer, that's our original surface, and the red layer, that's our program block diagram, right? So we have to pull this geometry away from that to start making a copy of it or something, potentially. You don't have to, but it might help in order to not obstruct the original geometry. So what I'm going to do is go into my top view and just drag select all of the geometry that's present here, and then Alt and gumball it over to the side to make a copy. Oops. Okay, it should look like this.
Just made a copy of it?
Yep, just made a copy. No big deal. So at this stage, you know, we're less interested in many cases. We're less interested in the actual Grasshopper definition. So you have some options. You can save it and close it, or you can just select everything and then middle mouse click button and turn it all off, or potentially even just leave it on. You know, it's up to you. Just be aware that there are two complete models in your Rhino model. You'll just need to remember which one is which. Let's see. Okay. Well, I'll figure that part out later. Okay, so moving on from this then, I think the last thing that we want to do is just set up the ground plane that we're going to start to blend with the geometry that we have. So for me, the basic way of doing that is to turn on the, let me hide this, I'm just going to minimize that, get it out of the way. Your ortho is pretty helpful for this. You should be able to just kind of create a rectangle by hovering over this kind of point and get your smart track and then pull it to the intersection here if it'll allow me to grab it. Might give me some trouble. Well, that didn't work for me. Hang on. Go from there. Go from there. There we go. That intersection. And then you can grab this one and you can start pulling down along that intersection. Now, mine, I didn't actually create a fourth surface, but if yours has a fourth surface, then you're going to want to actually snap to that other corner as well. So this outer profile should bound your model on all four sides if that's the route you're going. Any other questions about that right now? Okay, so here's another thing we have to do in order to get us generated is to actually create our blending zone. So this blending zone is, the way I'm going to do it is I'm actually going to blend it with probably like a 25-foot buffer, and then I'm going to just put a 5-foot linear alignment after that. But let's just offset that, and we're going to offset it with a distance of 25. I'm going to go out 25, and then I'm going to go out another 5. Actually, it probably should be more than that. Let's go out 10. Okay. So I'm going to stop this video here. I think that you should be in this position before we continue on. So hopefully that'll be in just a few minutes.